year, so I had to stay after practice, and I would kick 100 penalty kicks,
right.
Until every single one was one side netting every time. And I think I had 3 penalty kicks. I won a game with a penalty kick.
Hey everyone, welcome to My Final Play. I'm here with former all-conference collegiate soccer player, Michael Sherman. Michael, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
We're going to get into the sport of soccer. And so at what age were you introduced to the sport?
I was introduced at an early age. My parents really encouraged me to, pick up the sport, be active. So I'm guessing the age of 4, I started soccer. I started out with the AYSO program. The little kid stuff, did that for a while. And then as I progressed as a player, I started, expanding my play a little bit. And I played on some travel teams there up until high school. I played at high school. I was a 4-year starter at Boy Run as a midfielder. So that's kind of where I got my start and stuff. And like I said, I had very supportive parents. I played in the AYSO World Games. They took me to Michigan for that.
Oh, wow.
We played a lot of tournaments at like Fort Dix and West Point. And we were constantly running for soccer, and it was just a neat experience to get to travel around, to play for my high school, to letter in high school each year. And then kind of look ahead towards what kind of opportunities were out there after the high school level.
Right. So, as far as playing from the young age all the way through college, at what point then would you say, or what age were you when you would think that it actually clicked for you, to realize that you had a little bit of a talent for it, and then wanted to just kind of pursue it?
I would say probably about my sophomore year of high school. I was fortunate. I grew up with a great group of guys that we were all about the same age. So, our senior year, I believe we started 10 or 11 returning starters. Well, actually, it would have been 10, So, I had been playing with those guys since they were, 6 years old as well. And their dad was, one of their dads, Randy Harrison. He was the first AYSO coach I remember. That's a man that pretty much gave his life to teaching kids how to play soccer. He's still a high school ref now. All these years later, he's still involved in the sport. And if I look back at the coaches really played a part in me continuing in the sport. I played for Coach David Hahn at Boy Run. It was a great opportunity there. Great group of guys to play with, and we gelled really well. And I would say my sophomore year, I started thinking, maybe this is something I wanted to look at in college.
So getting to that college level then, you ended up going to Penn State Hazleton and didn't get recruited, but you were able to walk onto the team. What was that process like to walk on?
It was a tough process because, at the collegiate level, there's a lot of talent. It doesn't matter regardless of where you go. The talent's out there. So, as I started at Penn State Hazleton and, went to the soccer meeting and they had tryouts, and, that was tough to make because I believe we had 22 players on the team, roughly. So it was hard to get on the team and then stay on the team. I didn't start as a freshman, the first couple games of the season. It was one of those deals where you had to prove yourself. And, the only way to prove yourself is through hard practice, dedication, and, staying afterwards and putting in long hours. And I would say about 3 to 4 games into the season, I was able to pick up a starting role as a midfielder.
Now, as far as that midfielder season, your freshman season, what did you do then in between that and then the all-conference season that you earned then your sophomore year?
Well, Penn State Hazleton is basically, most players played there for 2 years back then. They are a 4-year school now. So each year you have a couple people leaving the program. And we had some sophomore forwards that were very talented, and they were leaving a pretty big hole. And, one of the ways I was able to get on the team is, I could throw the ball in very well. And that was kind of how I got to be on the field anyways, just because, one of my throw-ins could be like a corner kick from just about anywhere. So that's what got me on the field. And then, I had the chance and I scored a goal in a game down near Philadelphia, in a tight game, and the coach saw that I could do it. And then after that, I started the rest of the season. At the end of the season, Coach Pakinda was my coach. Great guy, really challenged us, drove us to be better. And, he came up to me at the end of that season and said, we have these big holes to fill, and, we're going to look to you as the lead. So, put the work in the off season to become a striker.
Right.
And, I remember that year, there wasn't a whole lot of time that I wasn't hitting the books, that I wasn't playing soccer.
Right.
All throughout the spring, summer, just running. This was going to be the dream season for me. Because I made a choice when I went to Penn State Hazelden to pursue an animal science degree. I had some places I probably could have played had I not wanted an animal science degree, but Penn State was one of the only places that offered it that I felt comfortable going to. So, my decision to go to Hazelden was, the first year was to, get into the Penn State system, kind of gradually transition into the main campus. After that first season of playing for them, I had determined that, I'm going to come back for my sophomore season, and that's going to be a season where I can make a difference.
Right.
So put a lot of hours in.
Yeah. So you get that nod almost from the coach saying that you're the one that's going to fill this hole, and it was ready to work.
Yeah.
So walk us through then a little bit of what happened then throughout that sophomore season.
Throughout the sophomore season, it was, looking back, it feels like it was a blur.
Yeah.
Our first game, we played a college in New Jersey, got off the bus, had a hat trick, and that's where it all started.
Yeah.
Every game, the game seemed to slow down for me, and, scoring wasn't that big an issue. We had 11 games that season. I scored in 9 of them.
Yeah.
The University of Penn State Hazelden, they were great to play for because, they definitely care about their student athletes and want to see you succeed. And, they have the things in place to make it work. So they're very supportive of athletes, riding around to the games, just hanging out with the other players. It took a large university to make it feel small because you had that group of 20 guys that you could always go to, and that was kind of important in my college career, just getting together that teamwork and that network of players to bond with.
Right.
We didn't have a perfect season. We did lose some games, and there was some really high moments and some really low moments.
Yeah. So as far as those high moments, you ended up with 16 goals in that season, correct?
Yes, I scored 16 goals in 11 games.
Yeah.
For a 1.45 goals per game average, which is pretty decent at any level.
Which then earned you the all-conference honors then that year as well.
That's correct.
So leading up to that then, I guess, walk us through your final play then as a sophomore at Penn State Hazelden.
Our final game was against Penn State York.
Mm-hmm.
It was a away game. We were seed number, I think, 2 or something like that, or 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think we were 3 and they were 2. And we had the away game down at York. And, the way the playoffs were set up, we had that game. And then if you win that game, you were playing in the finals in the CACC division or league we were in.
Yeah.
And, the whole way down to York, this is going to be our game. We're going to get to the finals. We're going to win this championship.
Yeah.
We get off the bus. We're fired up. I recently got the stat sheets just so I could remember some of this stuff because I couldn't remember how many goals I had and, what games I scored in. It was like going into a time warp because I was able to kind of replay that in my mind and find memories that I had lost.
Yeah.
And, I remember taking a pass to the outside, 8 minutes into the game, beating the defender, streak down the left side, and beat the keeper on a near post shot.
Yeah.
That was by far the greatest goal of the season for me.
Yeah.
There was a pretty big World Cup run after that one, because that was pretty cool. And, as the game progressed, there was a couple little slip-ups, and York got one against us in the first half, and then they finished us off with about 20 minutes to go, they got a second one. And that whole game, you're just thinking, okay, there's one more left in me. I'm going to get this. I just need my opportunity. And I can still picture a couple shots not going my way.
Yeah.
And my final play, I remember they scored a goal with, seconds left in stoppage.
Yeah.
And, I remember watching that ball hit the back of the net and drop, and, it was just like a knife went right through you, because that was going to be it.
Yeah.
And most likely that was going to be the last competitive game of my career.
Right.
And so then we had to go on to something else.
Yep.
So.
Now, as far as the emotion with your final game, when did that all sink in?
I believe it was, walking through the line, shaking hands,
yeah.
You're walking behind a player you're probably not going to walk behind again.
Right.
Getting on the bus. It's, a couple-hour ride home. No one wants to talk. Everyone, we're all in shock because you just figured it was going to keep rolling.
Yeah.
And there was going to be one more. And just,
all that anticipation for the championship game, and you just came short.
Yeah. So that was tough.
From that moment, what would you say would be the number one emotion that kind of cements that memory then to your mind?
I would say out of that moment I took away that, this series pretty well summed it up. You never know when your final play is going to be.
Right.
And, I want to make sure that I can do everything in my power to make sure that, other youth growing up in soccer and stuff, not only get their final play, in some cases get their first play.
Right.
After that, there was a window there where I didn't have kids. I wasn't really active in the sport.
Yeah.
And then I was able to, have 3 boys, and that really changed things for me at that point.
Right. So as far as getting into that, with what it is that you're doing now, coming from, Hazleton, you spent the 2 years there, you finished your degree at Penn State, Maine. What are you doing now, and how does soccer still play a role in what you're doing?
Well, after getting my degree in animal science, I started working with the United States Department of Agriculture,
mm-hmm.
and I was able to move home by my family farm. And currently, right now, we run about 70 head of cattle on a little over 100 acres. So I have the government job during the day, the farm to supplement some of the evening hours, and 3 boys that fill in the gaps with a whole lot of soccer at the moment.
So let's speak to some of that as far as what you're doing currently for the program at Montgomery area.
Okay. When my oldest son was 6,
mm-hmm.
they really didn't have, they had a program here, but it was on its way out. Because with any AYSO program, as the kids age out of the program, so do the parents.
Right.
So there's not a whole lot of backfill in it unless you target it,
Yeah.
A couple individuals came to me and said, Montgomery's not going to have a program unless we find a regional commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, there may have been a program here at Montgomery for varsity boys, I believe there was, but that too was starting to slow down a little bit. And I just kind of recognized it as an opportunity, if I wanted my boys to have a program, I was going to have to help make that program for them.
Right.
So I took over as regional commissioner probably 4 or 5 years ago. And in that time, I've coached multiple teams, I've reffed, I've done the regional commissioner deal.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with the kids, not just on my own team, but with all divisions, because I want to make sure that everyone's, in our leagues given the opportunity to succeed.
Right.
And have the tools they need to kind of carry forward if they want to play soccer.
Yeah. So you've got the government job and the farm, and now coaching almost 3 teams at some point. What would you say that the sport of soccer has taught you overall? What would you say would be the number one thing that you've learned from the sport?
I would say the number one thing is just that, if anyone puts their mind to it, they can do it.
Yeah.
And that's important. We have a lot of kids coming out that maybe have never played before. They're turning to our youth sports as a way to, build their social interaction skills, develop friendships. It's funny, if I go to the grocery store, I may never coach a kid, but I get high fives at the store, because, we do an indoor program where I personally instruct the kids each division, for 8 straight weeks over the winter.
Right.
I'm in the gym with them for, 5 hours every Saturday or whatever it is. And just making sure each division gets their own personal time, and, the friendships that we're able to get with that, it's really cool just to run out in public and see kids that you coach. And, I don't think it would have mattered to them where I played.
Yeah.
They know I played soccer in college. We don't really elaborate about it too much, but they know I played for Penn State to some degree, and, to some of those, especially those little 6-year-olds and stuff, I mean, you have the same outlook to them as, a major soccer player would,
Right.
You're the closest thing they got to someone that did something before, so.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. And just to bring the whole, we've had tremendous support from this community. Clinton Township, they donated $20,000 to build a turf soccer field for us.
Yeah.
For a school district that, currently doesn't have a varsity program for the boys, that's pretty cool. We were able to build a junior high team for the first time in a long time. And, it's just the AYSO kids coming up that were able to do that,
Right.
And, in our first year this year, we were able to win a couple games. We were the only co-ed team in the league. So, we had boys and girls out there giving it their all. And, we came home with a couple wins. We went to a big tournament against some really tough competition. We walked off the field, in halftime of 2 games against what I consider the best programs in central Pennsylvania, only down 2-0,
Right.
And that was no travel players, just ASO kids all heading in the same direction.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool and it's very rewarding.
Right.
So, in my first season as junior high coach here in Montgomery, I found it just an amazing experience. The athletic director, Mike Snyder, has been tremendous to work with, the school board here at Montgomery. Everyone's doing their part to ensure that the kids, have that opportunity that they may have not have had.
Right.
So it's truly a humbling experience to know that everyone's kind of behind you in this.
Yeah, it's definitely cool to see that dedication that you still have to the sport to just carry it on from one generation to the next even. So
yeah.
That's great. I appreciate that. And I definitely appreciate the time that you spent just sharing your story, and what you're doing for this community is awesome. So keep that up, and I'm sure that that's being recognized. You're actually being recognized this weekend, correct?
This weekend I'm heading to Washington, D.C. to receive a Presidential Call to Service Award for my volunteer time, with the soccer programs. I logged a lot of hours in the past year, and, to see the kids' smiles on their faces, coming off the field and knowing they're having a good time.
Right.
It's worth every second that I do. I spend a lot of long nights, my kids and my wife, most of the time that cell phone's attached to me during soccer season because I'm helping coaches out and scheduling games. I also ref games, and this weekend it's supposed to be, 105 degrees or something on Saturday. I'm scheduled to ref 10 games of the tournament on Saturday, and, we kind of went through this earlier. I want to be the memory in some kid's mind that, Coach Harrison, Coach Hahn, Coach Kakinda, down the road I want to be Coach Sherman to some kid.
Right.
And if it means running around in 100-degree heat for 8 hours straight, so I'm willing to do it.
Bring it on.
It's a lot of fun and very rewarding.
That's an awesome selfless mentality that obviously the team first, something that you were taught through sports, is carrying on that you can be as an example to others. So thank you very much. I hope you guys all enjoyed that. If you did, please like and subscribe below. And remember, whatever it is that you do today, approach it with the mindset of, is this my final play? Thanks again.